Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Christina, and I thought it would be fun in today's video to take you along with me as I reset the playroom for another week of learning, specifically focused on my preschoolers. So we are focusing on the letter P this week. We actually skipped P, Q, and R. We finished up O, and then I really wanted us to do my S is for snow unit, and also do tree week and exploring nature with children last week. So I did like a snowy trees theme, which you can kind of still see behind me. I'm going to clean off the chalk wall and redo the chalk wall with our scripture of the week and some tracing activities for my kids. I actually just reset my learning shelf over here, which I typically rotate at least weekly with activities related to the letter of the week and then sometimes some others. This week it is heavily themed for P Week, so I'm really excited to share that with you. And then I'll share with you a couple other activities that we'll be doing throughout the week that aren't necessarily going to be set up in the playroom, but will be things that I'll use with my 3 and 5-year-olds mostly, but I'll also share with you maybe some things that I'll be doing to include my 8-year-old and maybe even my older kids. So if you have a preschooler or you have a child that is learning letters or is going to be learning letters sometime soon, then hopefully this will give you some inspiration. Or even if you're not looking for these specific themes like letters and things like that, it might just give you some ideas for how to rotate some activities for your kids, some learning activities, some play activities, and things like that. So let me know down in the comments below if you have preschool age kids and if you are working on letters with them. And if you are, what your favorite activities are for them to learn through play, because that's really what we try to focus on most with the younger years in our homeschool. So the very first thing I want to show you is our learning shelf. As I mentioned, I just set this up. It's the first thing I did in the room, and I'm doing a sort of penguin theme for P Week for the most part. So I have this Step 2 book. This came in our winter preschool knowledge crate, so I'm utilizing a ton of stuff from there. These wooden cursive tracing tiles, I will link down below. I just got those off of Amazon, but these penguin counting cards, these were from a previous knowledge crate, as well as that wooden P. These are from the current winter preschool crate. These are color-coded penguins for sorting the little colored penguins, and these came in a math kit along with these 10 frames, which are like ice blocks, and there are 10 of these, so that it goes all the way up to 100. So there are 10 of each color, but you can do so many different things here. Like you could choose one of the 10 frames if that's the level they're at and put one of the penguin counting cards and then have them put that many penguins. You can use this roll and cover with dice like I did here. This is from the winter preschool crate as well. And they would just roll the dice, and however many they get, they would take a penguin and cover the numbered penguin on here. This is typically used with dry erase, but I really like the idea of just not having the marker out for this and just them using these little penguins for everything. And then what was really cool that came in the preschool winter crate this time around were a packet of these scissor like cutting practice sheets. So some of them were snowflakes, some of them were penguin. So I just pulled the penguin ones. And then there are some art projects in here for penguins as well. So we'll do some of that this week, but I'm just not putting those out on the shelf. But I'll have them do this at some point throughout the week as well to keep with the P and penguin theme. And there are even like these penguin fact cards that I'll pull out at some point and all of that. It was like an Arctic theme, but there's a ton of penguin stuff in here, as you can see, and even explanations for how to use the resources. So I've had out this month card because I just feel like that's helpful, even though it's not, it doesn't start with a P. But then we have our character trait, patience, which starts with a P, and our scripture that starts with a P as well. And I often put that scripture up on the chalk wall, but this week I'm going to do a different scripture for that starts with P, which I'll share with you guys a little bit later. So I didn't switch up much on the bookshelves, but I did add this book that I've been holding on to for a while, Growing Up with Patience. It looks like a really sweet book, all about learning patience. The main character's name is Patience, and this is from one of my favorite places to get books, which is Good and True Media, and they just have high moral value and books that you don't have to worry about inappropriate things or values that you don't want in your children's books. So we're going to start this one this week, and it'll be a great way to focus on the character trait of patience during P week this week. And I'll read this with all of my kids together. So now I am putting the new scripture up on the wall. I'll also put some tracing for my younger ones, as I mentioned. And as much as I know you don't need to see me do this, there were some things happening while I was doing this that I think may be helpful and insightful. The reason I did the learning shelf first is so that while I was working on it, on the chalk wall, the younger ones would have something to do, and you can kind of hear them. You can hear my 8-year-old helping my 3-year-old, and then you can hear my 5-year-old working mostly independently until he asks me for some help. So I thought it might be helpful for some of you to listen in on that.
I only have 7.
Wow, okay.
Of white?
Yeah.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah. Gia.
There's 8, something.
No, there isn't.
Let me see,
Gia,
Baba.
what happened? Nothing. Gia, you take the one that was on that.
You have 9, and you only need 9 for this one. But we should have 10, so we'll have to keep an eye out for the extra white one.
Yeah.
But you only need 9 for that one.
Alright. Go. Black. 7 black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Good girl.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Juju just counted these 7.
Where am I?
Good.
Alright.
I don't know.
Some sevens.
If we do in the closet or
Wait,
the
so
drawer in
Juju.
the bathroom.
This is cool.
Okay.
Because it's 4 and 3 makes 7 also. But also 6 and 3 6 and 1 yeah, 7. Juju, you know 6 and 1 more can make 7. And then where is it? And then 4 and purple now.
Do we have any?
It's a 7.
I think you've
And then
used them
4
up
and
maybe
then
with all your
7.
projects.
That's a 7.
Not really, is any?
7. And that's a 7. Here, you keep rolling, trying to make the things, and then I'll check to make sure they're right. I have to go hunting.
So the beautiful thing about setting up these resources ahead of time and having just a handful of activities out on the learning shelf is that they can self-select things, so they're not overwhelmed by the options and just making a huge mess, although messes do happen. But typically I will just introduce them to the things that are on the shelf and give them some ideas for how to use them, and then they just let their creativity take them where they want it to go. So my 5-year-old took out the colored penguin cards and laid them all out, and then chose which numbers he wanted to match up with each color. And then he invited his sister to do what he deemed the easier ones, and then he did what he deemed the harder ones. So they just took some time setting them up, talking about them. He did not put the numbers in any particular order, but they did match up the right colors and the right numbers of penguins, which was a useful activity. And then I spent some time with him extending his learning and challenging him in the way that I knew he needed by turning some of those into addition problems. So I had him pick 2 of the color cards and 2 of the number cards, and then match up the numbers just like he did the first time around, just building off of what he was already doing. And then I helped him talk through how he could then figure out how many 9 penguins plus 10 penguins equaled. So instead of telling him how to do it, I had him do some thinking around how to figure this out. So this learning through play really becomes a mixture of independent play, collaborative play with siblings, and then one-on-one time where I'm giving them attention as they're playing to help move their learning along.
A little. Not a little. Not a little.
So how many pink penguins do we have?
10,
How many white penguins do we have?
9.
So how could we figure out how many penguins we have all together? Like how many white and how many pink all together? How could we figure that out?
Like counting.
By counting them all?
Yeah.
Okay, what would be the best way to do that, do you think?
Count in my head.
In your head? Okay. Why don't you try it?
$22.
Really close. This time, why don't you try counting out loud so that I can make sure you're on the right track? Because you're so close.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
So while I didn't think the counting in his head up that high would work, I did not want to discourage his critical thinking or problem solving. So when it didn't work, I simply gave him a suggestion to adjust and be able to be successful at the task we were trying to complete. My 3 and my 5-year-olds both really enjoyed the cutting practice activities way more than I expected, so much so that the next day, or I think it might have even been later this day, I put out all the rest of the ones that we had, even though they didn't start with a P. They were like snowflake themed and different shapes. We also pulled out our Arctic busy bin from Knowledge Crates. We spent a full day skiing and snowboarding on a beautiful mountain in Massachusetts. Okay, here's what I ended up with after a few welcome interruptions, honestly. I sketched some hyssop in the top left and a snowflake on the bottom right to go with the scripture, and then just some print and cursive copy work or tracing for my 3, 5, and 8-year-olds. And just to show you a progression throughout the week, just some simple changes. Everything stayed the same on here. I just added in these little first books. So they had words that started with P, and then this story, Flip and Flop, about penguins, just to add in some more books. And then also for some more learning through play this week, we used the Pine Tree Principle Pack from For the Love of Homeschooling, along with our Play-Doh and Play-Doh accessories from Whimsical Dough for just some sensory and literacy and math around letter P. Then for all of my kids, but also as a way to include my older kids, I printed out this freebie from For the Love of Homeschooling. This was based on Psalm 51, and it focused on just kind of like the cleansing and forgiveness of God based on this scripture, Psalm 51:7, and it worked perfect for P weeks. It was just perfect. And then there's this whole journal, so for reflecting on God's forgiveness and his cleansing, and it tells stories from scripture, and there are journaling pages and reflection and scripture memorization and copy work and just stuff in here for all of my different aged kids, which I really love. So we did get through just kind of the beginning of this so far, and we plan to continue just breaking it up and taking our time with it. But it's been a really special study and just a really great way for your kids to connect, God's forgiveness and scripture. And then also there's this nature piece that dives into snowflakes, since snow is mentioned in that scripture. So I really like the way the kind of nature study and Bible study are tied together. And so a really beautiful, valuable freebie from For the Love of Homeschooling. They're also having a virtual conference right now. It is just live today. So if you're interested in more homeschooling encouragement, I do have a speech for the conference in there as well. So I will link that down below in the description. Okay, you guys, I hope you enjoyed seeing how I set up the playroom for a week of learning with our letter P as our theme for the week. Let me know down in the comments below if you found this helpful, if you have any questions. I try to link everything down in the description box, and I hope to see you soon in one of my next videos. Until next time, stay rooted.